即係長談深入時事話題。卑詩省嘅省議會喺上個月27號就結束咗2018年嘅年會啦。今日我哋為大家請到嘅係反對黨嘅黨領The Honourable Andrew Wilkinson 嚟同我哋傾下佢對於呢一年2018年我哋省議會做咗啲咩表示佢嘅睇法啦。Andrew, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's jump to the 2018. What's happening in Victoria? Now, the NDP government with the Green Party, they have been very careful to maintain a two-hand balanced approach. That means, on one hand, they're economically right, and on the other hand, socially left, which is how they define the central left. What do you think about it? Is this approach working?
I think you're right in terms of their approach on the social side. They've been increasing spending quite dramatically on some things that they announced in the election, like childcare. It's not working very well because we heard last week that in Victoria they announced 250 childcare spaces, but it turned out that 450 had closed because of their new policies. So on the left side of things, they are very active. They say they'll do a lot of things and they have trouble delivering them. On the, what you call the right side or the business side, I really question that because they have talked about major projects like the Site C Dam, the liquid natural gas, those kinds of major projects. But in terms of the smaller businesses and our real estate business, that's not going well. I just heard yesterday from a major car dealer in Vancouver that their sales are down by 40% over last year. Mm-hmm. That's a huge drop in economic activity because people are getting concerned about what drives British Columbia, which is small business. And there's a lot of worry now in the smaller business sector that internationally things aren't going well. The NDP have put on many new taxes, a total of 18 new taxes that the NDP have put on. So I think their approach to business has been neglect and a degree of oppression. Mm-hmm. They're actually not being very kind to business at all.
Seaside and the LNG, that's a big step for them, particularly in all of despite how Green parties try to dump it. In that respect, do you think that they are still on the right track of having a train engine like this to industry to bring up the economy? Do you think that will work?
The NDP like the idea of major projects because it means lots of well-paid jobs for people that they would like to have in unions. And so Site C, the dam up in the Peace River country, was started by the BC Liberals. They threatened to stop it. And then they eventually overcame the resistance of the Green Party and decided to carry on. Partly because all of their union friends said, it's crazy to stop this project, it's half done, so why not finish it with all the people being employed there? Mm-hmm. So they took a Liberal project with Site C and decided to carry on. Similarly with liquid natural gas, LNG as we call it, they inherited these projects from the BC Liberals. There was nothing there in 2013, and then about 20 projects were proposed, and the first one to come through is called LNG Canada, and that's in the town of Kitimat. It's the biggest industrial investment in Canadian history, and the NDP agreed to that over the resistance of the Green Party because they like the idea of big projects. Mm-hmm. But we do well with big projects, but they're mostly in the north of British Columbia. The Peace River project, the Site C Dam, is in the far northeast of British Columbia. LNG is in the far northwest and northeast of British Columbia. So where we are here in the Lower Mainland, in 604, the Vancouver area, we have to worry what makes this economy tick along so well. And it's services, it's immigration, it's housing. These are the things that really make things work here. And the NDP are causing major trouble because of all the new taxes they put on. Mm-hmm. Because people say, I'm not sure I can make an investment here, I'm not sure I want to stay here. And we hear it all the time from young people, about 20 to 28 years old. They have a difficult time seeing they'll have a future here because they can't find the jobs that pay them enough to live the cost of living here in Vancouver. So we have to be very concerned about those young people because they are telling us where the future lies. And right now, they're quite pessimistic.
So the big projects are something that is although good, but they have neglected the small businesses, which is the backbone of our economy. You mentioned about tax. How about speculation tax?
Well, this is a classic NDP policy that they started off saying they wanted to stop speculation. So they bring in a tax that was originally 2% of the value of your house to be taken away by the government every year. They said this would stop speculation by foreigners, and we all know what that means. I came as an immigrant to Canada. I don't think of myself as a foreigner. You're not a foreigner. So who are these people they're after? And they have trouble defining it, except for new immigrants from China. They're quite keen on penalizing them. And they also talked about people coming from outside of British Columbia in Canada. And this is something that we see a bit of in Vancouver, but it's mostly in Victoria and Kelowna. Many people come from the colder parts of Canada who've often lived here before and they plan to retire here. So they buy a small place to live in that they will move to when they retire. This is common in Kelowna and in Victoria. And then the NDP came along and said, no, you're property speculators. We're going to take away part of your
But they have exempt some of the cities.
They
smaller
exempted
towns.
some of their friends. Where the Green Party has members and where the Premier's riding is, those are exempted. But the area where the BC Liberals have ridings, those were all hit hard with the tax.
That's how you interpret why many of the exemptions is in Vancouver Island.
The exemptions don't make any sense unless they're pure politics. And plus we have to ask, what is the goal of this tax? We said if you want to stop speculation in real estate, then you should be taxing those condominium contracts when people hear about a project before it's been built. Some in Richmond here, some in Vancouver, and they buy the paper contract and I sell it to you, you sell it to your sister sells it back to me, and we all make a profit on the way around. We've said if you want to keep the cost of new condominiums affordable, you should tax that chain of transactions. That's speculation. But the idea that someone's retirement home is a speculative attempt to make money is not really true. Most of the people paying the speculation tax will be British Columbians.
You have been the leader of the opposition party for this whole term and the winter section. During this time, from the opposition point of view, what do you think is the most dangerous thing that the NDP government has done that will not on certain projects or certain aspects, but in total, in an entity entirely about our democracy, our future?
There are two things there. The first is the union benefits agreement they have now going for when government builds a bridge or a highway or a hospital or repairs a school, that only their friends are allowed to do the project. They have chosen 19 labor unions who are allowed to do the work and said to the other 85% of construction workers, they're not allowed to do the work. So they're rewarding their friends and penalizing their enemies. And this is not correct. This is wrong.
I think that is something that the regular citizens doesn't know, is that what's the percentage of workers who are the union members?
In the construction business, 15% are in these NDP-friendly unions, and 85% are not in those unions. In the healthcare system, most people are unionized. But in the private sector, it's a very small percentage now. It's about 17% are unionized. That's a big change over the last 40 years, because a lot of people, if you and I were workers in a union and we were in a small business, we would look at each other one day and say, why are we paying union dues? And so a lot of people quit unions over the last 30 years.
So this community benefit agreement really is for that 15%. Then are they going to run out of workers because they only have 15% of the working force?
No, the deal is from the NDP, if you want to work on those projects, you have to quit your current union, or if you're not in a union, you have to join one of the 19 NDP unions. And the NDP will then send the workers to the companies. The companies don't get to choose the workers.
Is that constitutional?
There's a lot of fuss about this because it's really very high-handed. It's the NDP saying friends and enemies, winners and losers. And the job of government is to make things better for everybody.
As an opposition party, have you challenged them on the constitutional front?
We have, and there's an independent organization that's putting it through the courts, and it takes a long time to get through the courts. But there's a grave concern about this favoritism the NDP is showing. And these 19 unions are the ones who've been giving the money for the last 20 years. It's just not right. Now, you asked about troubling things. There's another very troubling thing that's gone on recently, and that's where the two most senior officials in the legislature, known as the clerk and the sergeant at arms, these are traditional positions. They wear the fancy gowns. They preside over the legislature. They were both removed and escorted from the building by the police, and none of us know why. And so we're very worried about this. We've been pushing the man who did it, known as the Speaker of the legislature, and he refuses to answer questions. We pushed the NDP about this, and they refuse to answer any questions either, and they don't want the Speaker to answer questions.
But
so we're very worried about this.
It was unanimously voted on the Tuesday morning when the issue came up, presented by the Speaker. At that point, what did you later on found out that you decided that you want to change about?
Well, we had been told on the Monday evening that these two individuals were under police investigation and needed to be removed from their positions. We didn't know any better. The following morning, the NDP, who are the government, they say they've taken some advice from lawyers, they won't tell us what it is, that they passed the motion and we were asked to agree to the motion. We had no choice, really. Then we found out that the Speaker wanted his friend to be installed in one of the positions as the Sergeant at Arms. This is just completely wrong. And it turns out that his friend, called Mr. Mullen, had done the investigation on the Sergeant at Arms to get him kicked out so that he could take his job. So this looks very, very bad, and we're very concerned about it.
So in the long run, as an opposition party, is there anything that you would like to present on the legislation front to avoid this kind of one-man show or one-man empire of the Speaker?
Yes. It's interesting. The current law in British Columbia is the Speaker can only leave his office when he resigns, or he dies, or after a general election when he loses his seat. If he has a stroke or turns out to be a criminal, you can't get rid of him. In the United States, they have their 25th Amendment to the Constitution that provides when the president is incapacitated or unfit for office, there's a way to remove the president. So there's a way to remove the president of the United States, but there's no way to remove the Speaker, and that needs to be fixed.
Well, let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll continue to talk about 2018 British Columbia.
Thanks, BC.